Good evening. Welcome to the Wealth and Wisdom Show with the Market Guys. I'm your host, James DeGiorgia, and joining me tonight is Jeff Garbaz, my co-host, and Dan Hassey, the senior research editor from the Golden Energy Advisor. Jeff, what's on tap for the show today?
Well, tonight we're going to be talking energy markets with Dan Hassey. I've known Dan for a good period of time, and he's got a strong background in energy, so we should be able to pick up a few good insights from him.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is to ask really the question that's not plaguing everybody. Is $100 oil a barrel really something that's going to be around for a while?
Yes. There's a lot of things that are forcing oil prices up, and one of them is it's a finite resource, and we are running out. We can talk more about that. But demand and inventories have been rising, so they should pull back some, especially if the U.S. economy and the global economy starts to continue to slow. So I think you will see prices pull back. But if the economies, it's hard to imagine that that oil prices are this strong and the economy is slowing down and the U.S. economy may be in a recession. What happens if you have a disruption or all the global economy, or the whole global economy are running on all cylinders? What's going to happen to oil? So yes, I think we can look forward to higher prices. They may pull back a little bit during this slowdown in the economy.
Dan, how much of the move in the energy markets do you think is due to the fall of the dollar? That's my first question. And the second is, what do you see as the potential catalyst to get the dollar starting to move back higher? And when would you see that potentially happening?
If you look at the dollar, certainly is having an impact because oil is denominated in dollars, and so what they're saying is that the Middle East, if you're getting paid in dollars and it's going down, you're going to get rid of those and you're going to buy something like gold or oil or other commodities that are going to hedge you. So if you're selling gold or oil, you're going to get rid of your dollars and buy something else. So I think that's putting pressure on assets like gold and oil on the upside and putting downward pressure on the dollar. In terms of what the catalysts are, I think if you're looking at if you are an international investor in a central bank, your choices are the yen, and so certainly people are playing that in terms of because it's so cheap, and that you can put your money in yen and then buy something that's more valuable.
It's almost a free trade.
Yeah, they call it a carry trade.
Correct.
But if you look at Europe, are the Europeans really doing better than we are in terms of the prospects? So you've really got to. I don't think you'll probably see some stabilization here because the dollar has fallen so much. The dollar. If you look at the dollar index, a basket of our trading partners' currencies. It was at 120 in 2002, and now it almost went to 70. So that's a dramatic pullback. Part of the rise in the dollar and gold is partly that. That's probably about 50%. Gold and oil prices are certainly much more than that. So it's also supply and demand issues with gold and energy, but certainly the weak dollar is certainly part of that. In terms of what will stabilize the dollar, I think you're going to start to see that I think the central banks will start to maybe intervene. The Japanese have always intervened because it really hurts their economies and it's slowed the economies down. And I think you'll see, right now the Europeans are more concerned about inflation. Our central banks have a mandate to be concerned about inflation as well as full employment and growth. They don't have that mandate, so they're focused on inflation. But at a certain point, there was talk from Bernanke that he's really studied the Depression. One of the things that caused ours to get worse is the Fed just did not lower rates and kept rates too high. And if you look at what's happening to the Europeans, I think that they could damage their economy. So I think you're going to see some stabilization. If you're trading with us, it's really going to hurt your manufacturing. It's going to slow it down, and they're going to be forced to lower the rates. So I think those type of things will continue. And we can't lower our rates anymore. We're down at 2.25. So I think those are some of the forces.
Well, I would point out that the interest rates, got even lower on the last cycle, that they moved lower, and that it seems to me that, and I guess I'd like your comment on this, is that the stabilization of the dollar is tied to two different things. It's tied, one, to the interest rates. The lower the interest rates go, the weaker the dollar becomes, but also relative to foreign currencies. If they don't follow us down with cuts at some point, we'll be in a situation where there's a diverse difference between, for instance, what you can earn on the euro and what you're going to earn on the dollar, and that has to affect the value. And we get to a point where the interest rates, as you say, have reached a bottom, 1.5%, because it's pretty obvious that they're going to cut even further at this point. Do you follow that?
Yeah, but I think my point is that we've gone from 5.25 to 2.75. That's a dramatic drop, and so if we go another percentage point, I think we've had most of the interest rates, and I think the dollar and some of these things already reflect. You know, I guess my question is it already in the price? And I think we're pretty close, and I think you're going to start to see lots of pressures around the world to try to get the dollar to stabilize, and that some of these other currencies will have to come down a little bit. And I think you're starting to see that now.
But it begs the question with regards to oil is that if we're reaching a plateau with the dollar, a bottom, for example, what happens when the U.S. economy picks up and starts to move? Are we going to see, $150 or $200 oil? Because now consumption is worldwide.
Yeah, I think that's possible, especially if you have a major supply disruption. A little while back when I read this really almost an epiphany from a gentleman by the name of Maxwell. He's a famous oil analyst, and basically what he was saying, you're starting to see it really come true, is that the major countries, or major producing countries in the world, are running out of oil. Europe, United States, Japan. Japan doesn't hardly have anything, and and where all the oil is with OPEC in the Middle East. And so when you give somebody that much power, they can control supply and prices, and that's just not a healthy thing. Also, I was going to bring a slide up here that shows, I always look at the International Energy Agency, and they have the forecast of what they think is going to happen to supply, demand, and prices. And the first thing that they do is they give you all these caveats, because here's all the things that go wrong. Crops, they don't have terrorists trying to slow down production or destroy supplies. That's what we have in oil constantly, especially in the Middle East, especially in Nigeria. Nigeria is becoming a very important exporter to us. If you look at what happened in Venezuela. So you have all these production problems that creates a premium to oil. And so I think that's part of the problem, is that it's hard to forecast this because so many bad things can happen. If you look at what's happening in the United States in terms of our weather and maintenance problems and all sorts of things that can go wrong. And that's the first thing that what I would say is we can make these forecasts, but a lot of bad things can happen. And for these forecasts to be correct, a lot of things have to go right, and that's really hard. You can't expect that.